Congratulations, you are now going to fly to Mars. I have some good news for you, and I have some bad news for you. The good news is that rover that you've already put on Mars, the Curiosity rover, was great. It runs great. It's the perfect platform to go look for life on Mars or the evidence of previous life on Mars. It's going to need some new instruments. The Curiosity rover was designed to look for evidence of habitability. But with a few instruments swapped in and out, the new rover, Perseverance rover, which looks more or less the same, is going to be perfectly suited for finding that actual evidence of previous life if it was there. That's the good news. The bad news, I guess this is bad news, is you have to decide where to land. Where do you want your one shot to look for evidence of ancient life? Let's take a look at Mars. Mars, as you remember, looks something like this. And when I say you have to pick one spot, I really mean it. Here, for example, is the location where Curiosity landed in Gale Crater, right about there. And the entire location that Curiosity has roved in all this time is smaller than the smallest dot I can put on there. Maybe it's actually about the size of the smallest dot I can put on there. But what that means is we are not going to land here, drive across here, studying all these different craters and everything else. We really get one shot in one place. What's the obvious shot at the one place? Well, we've already talked about this. You want to go to that ancient terrain. You want to go where it's more than 3.7 billion years old. You want to go to these high cratered Nowakian regions. That's where you want to go. And here's the bad news. You can't. Sorry. You can't. It's because of that highland part of it. You're going to land something the size of a bus on the surface of Mars. You're going to need parachutes. And those parachutes to operate need air. Mars doesn't have a lot, but to get to the highlands, it doesn't have nearly enough time through the atmosphere to slow you down in a parachute. Where could you land with your parachute? Very easily, up in here where the elevation is quite low, but also kind of boring. This is all Amazonian stuff that is covered in dust, maybe 1 billion years old. Who knows? But not a region that you really are that interested in looking for signs of ancient life. Here's a compromise. Let's go somewhere right here. I'll show you with detail in a minute. It's on the edge of this big basin that's clearly part of these northern lowlands, but it's a transition. This crater is a transition between the highlands, the ancient highlands here, and the lowlands here. And what this means, as I'll show you in a minute, it means that if there are channels coming down from the highlands going into the crater, and there are, that they will be carrying sediments that are Nowakian sediments. It's true that this is a Hesperian crater, but it's a Hesperian crater that should have Nowakian sediments. Let's look more carefully. Here's a blow-up of that corner of the northern highlands. Northern highlands were up here. I drew something that looks sort of like this. This is the Isidis Planitia, it's called. And the crater to which we're going is Jezero crater, right here. And, in fact, here is Jezero crater right here. And you can see that it has something, you'll see this in more detail in a minute, you see that something that looks like a stream coming in, and it actually carries out much further than this. There's another stream coming in up here, and very excitingly, there's crater walls. Maybe that's not exciting. That's normal. If you're a crater, you have crater walls. But there's a lack of a crater wall on this side. The crater has been breached. The wall has been breached, and a outflow channel goes from the crater out into this basin. That implies that this crater was filled and overspilled, and then the material started flowing outward. That's pretty exciting. Even more exciting, and again, I'll show you pictures in a minute, is this. These little fingery things that are outlined here are the outlines of what looks to all the world like a delta. Where do we get a delta on the Earth? Well, we get a delta when a river flows into another body of water carrying sediments, and those sediments then are slowed when it hits that body of water. When the sediments slow down, the river slows down, the sediments drop to the ground, and they make a big delta. Let's see how this looks up close. Pretty cool. You can start to see these things I talked about. There's the river channel coming in. There's another river channel coming in. This is this very nice breached wall right here with the outflow stream going all the way down here. And you can barely make out through here. I'm not going to draw on them so you can see them better. The fingers of what sure do look like parts of a delta. Are they really parts of a delta? Well, let's keep looking more carefully. Here's a really spectacular oblique view of the delta and of the stream channel coming in. Here's that stream channel coming in. There's another one. You can't quite see it as well over here. And where it comes in, this is the delta, and it looks just like you would get a delta on the Earth. You have little stream channels going in through here. You have stacked layers of where the sediments came out, and you have these little fingers going in all directions. Again, classic delta behavior, suggesting that there was a lake that was at least this deep. We think it was as deep as the crater walls because the crater walls were breached. So you have not only a delta that's bringing in these sediments, that's composed of these sediments that came from these Noachian areas, but you also have the crater floor. This crater floor is going to be just covered in sediments. So you're going to be able to go look at layers of sediments that it came at different times. You're going to see the crater floor. It's going to be a spectacular place to go land and see what's going on. What parts do you want to explore? Well, I would want to explore the delta face. I would want to explore the crater floor, and maybe get up on top of the delta and see what's going on, and then maybe even head up into the older terrains up through there. Let's see if we can make it happen. Here we go. We're going to try to land.
Balance masses in preparation for parachute deploy and to roll over to give the radar a better look at the ground.
One of the exciting things about this landing was that they had cameras. They never had cameras before. They just took some sort of off-the-shelf cameras, put them on there, and we're now watching. If you look down here at the bottom, you can see what stage you're in. Obviously, we're in the parachute deployment stage.
At an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
12 kilometers, still pretty high. There goes the heat shield.
Perseverance is now slowed to subsonic
and
speeds,
you are
and the
looking
heat shield has been separated.
At the surface of
This
Mars.
allows both the radar and the cameras to get their
landing.
first look at the surface. Current velocity is 145 meters per second at an altitude of about 9.5 kilometers above the surface.
First thing that has to happen is the radar has to detect the surface so it knows how high it is. So let's see. There goes that heat shield. Bye, heat shield. You were hanging on parachutes, wobbling around. See if we recognize anything. I don't see anything. Oh, a little better focus now. That's nice.
Nav filter converged. Velocity solution 3.3 meters per second. Altitude 7.4 kilometers.
Now has radar lock on the ground. Current velocity is about 100 meters per second. 6.6 kilometers above the surface.
Here's the delta. That's the edge of the delta for sure. Oh, here's the most amazing part that happens next. They have a map of Mars stored on board, and they are trying to figure out exactly where they are.
The initialization of terrain relative navigation and subsequently the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers.
So they're waiting to see if they can figure out where they are. That's the converging you heard.
Oh, yes, valid.
We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution as part of terrain relative navigation.
Priming. TBA is nominal.
We have timing of the landing engines.
So now that they know where they are, they have pre-selected places where it's safe to land, and they're going to go find one.
Current velocity is
What's going on?
83 meters per second at about 2.6
there's the edge of the
kilometers
delta.
from
I'd like
the
to land
surface of
right
Mars.
there.
We have confirmation that the backshell has separated.
We
are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about
here we go.
75
We're
meters
moving.
per
Now we're
second
moving,
at an
actively
altitude
moving.
of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
A kilometer away.
Here in safety Bravo.
I don't know where they're thinking about landing, but they think somewhere there's a safe spot to land.
Current speed is about
There we go.
30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the
Yes.
surface of
300
Mars.
meters. That's like the airplane landing. That's
We have started our constant velocity
here we are.
accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane.
Now we have two more cameras. One is looking up,
Contact the
and this
crane
one's looking
maneuver.
down, and you'll see what happens. There we go. The
Sky crane maneuver
spacecraft
has started.
drops on this crane, sky crane. They
About 20 meters
drop
off
the
the
rover,
surface.
and you can see the actual spacecraft up above. They drop the rover onto the surface into the blowing dust.
We're getting signals from MRO. Tango Delta.
Tango Delta means touchdown.
Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Okay, gotta tell you, that's amazing. Not only did it all work, which is insane, but we actually got to watch the whole thing happen, which is insane. I found that just one of the more exciting things that I had ever seen. So let's figure out where we landed. Back to this view, we saw this as we were coming in. I think even saw that little butte as we were coming in, but then it made that big divert maneuver, and for whatever reason, it chose, probably they knew what they were doing, but it chose to land over here. It was clearly avoiding this region, which was pretty hummocky looking, and nobody wanted to go there, and so it chose to go right there. And then, do you know what it did? Well, for 100 days, it went nowhere. It seems like a long time. You sit there you've landed, like then 3 months you just sit there, but they were testing everything out, making sure the equipment was working, learning how to fly the helicopter that got to fly a few times while I was still right there, and also doing in situ, meaning in place, experiments, collecting samples, looking at samples, and from their spot right there, they could use their telescopic cameras to examine things like this rock over here. We'll see pictures of it, and the side of the delta over here. Let's take a look at what they saw. That one butte that we kept seeing, well, it looks like this. And what do you see when you look at this butte? You see layers. Lots of layers. Layers, this is what gets geologists excited. If you see layers, you think sedimentary layers. It's true that you can sometimes have layered volcanic deposits, particularly like in the American Southwest, you see these a lot. But these, as you'll see in a minute, are clearly sedimentary layers. How do we know they're sedimentary layers? Well, I'm going to zoom in on this side over here, and we're going to see what we see. If you're a geologist and you look at this image, you say, oh my God, look at this. See these amazing top sets up here? See these amazing bottom sets down here? But mostly look at these incredible foresets in through here. Nice zoom in of them right over here. Why is this amazing? This is a delta. This is what you get when you are forming a delta. You have material coming in here. It falls down along here as the delta is being formed, and it hits the bottom over here. I'm going to show you, because it's just kind of cool to watch, a simulation of this exact process. This is a simulation done in a water tank, and you can see structures just like this being formed. Okay, here it is. The water is coming in here with sediment on this side. It's coming down, and you can see as the sediment builds up, it makes these layers, and these are, in fact, the foresets. You see the top sets going on here, foresets. You don't see the bottom sets quite as well here. And it looks just like the thing that I just showed you before, although in this image I flipped it around backwards so you can go in the same direction. And it is just classic. This is how a delta is made. And when geologists see that, they throw up their hands, they say, that is a delta. Very exciting. Finding a delta was, okay, it looked like a delta. It should have been a delta, but it's still a great confirmation of finding what you thought to be true to really be true. So that was fantastic. We are looking at sediments, presumably Noachian sediments. And remember, it's not just the delta where the sediments are, it's also the floor of this crater should be covered in, should be covered in sediments. And those are not sediments. These, as you don't need to be a very competent geologist to notice, if you look at this, these are not layers of sedimentary material. These are plates of volcanic material. The entire bottom of this crater is not sedimentary at all. It's just one big volcanic basin. Why? Well, either the sediments used to be there, maybe they've gotten all blown away. Maybe the crater lake didn't last long enough to make substantial sediments, although it did last long enough to make these nice delta. We still don't know the answer to that. And I remember people I knew who first saw these images, excitedly expecting to see sediments everywhere, looked at these things, and they just shook their heads. Sometimes things you think are obviously going to be correct, like this is going to be a sedimentary basin, are just wrong. At this case, I would say we were about 50-50. Yes, delta, no sediments in the basin. Nonetheless, this was a promising start from just sitting there, not even going anywhere yet. And then it was time to drive. As we'll talk about next time, much of this mission is devoted to actually collecting materials to, with luck, bring them back to the Earth. But there's still plenty of interesting action from just taking the picture. So we landed somewhere around here, and everybody wanted to get to the edge of the delta for looking at stuff, and the most direct route is not available, too hummocky through here. And there were some interesting looking geology over here. So actually, the drive went over here, spent some time in this area doing geology, and then turned around and went all the way back like this to get to the edge of the delta. Did studies somewhere along the edge of the delta. This is not exactly right, but you can find maps online of exactly where it went. Studied the edge of the delta, went up to the top of the delta, spent some time in the riverbed. The helicopter is dead and sitting on the surface somewhere right around here. And then it began the climb up over the crater rim and out of the crater. It is currently out of the crater onto some older volcanic terrain. It's very exciting, and it's still going strong. And of course, the most exciting aspect of it is that promise, that hope that eventually we will get samples back that Perseverance has been collecting along the way. We'll talk about those next.